This is my final video of 2024, so I only figured it was right to break down my top 10 favorite new disc releases of the year. I went through and looked at some stats, and this is my 191st video this year, which is a little more than 3 a week. I thought it'd be a little higher, and there are some plans for things to change. Likely look out next video. Some of the ways that a lot of things are changing, as well as kind of my maybe fortunate, maybe unfortunate schedule, but as life's gotten a little more complicated, things are changing, and that'll be the video coming out next, as well as potentially a rebrand. This might be the last video with the intro that you're about to see right now. Just because I haven't had the van since like the middle of the year, and so it's a little iconic here on the channel. If anything can be iconic on a channel of my size, but 63 dedicated reviews for discs this year, so just about almost exactly a third of my videos. And so discs that were new, but were like new plastics of the Destroyer, new on a Halo, this Evelina Swirly S blend, Vision Dimension that Eagle has, none of those count. It has to be a completely new mold release from a company. Re-releases kind of counted, like the Latitude 64 Cenus, but spoiler alert, that's not in my top 10. I do also have a pile of honorable mentions over here that we'll get to, and these are going to be ranked in a top 10 order. This is 100% just my opinion on what these discs are, and I'm interested to hear what your favorite releases were from this year. That being said, let's get on to the top 10. And my number 10 is the Niklas Antila Creator Series Drop. The Drop is an overstable approach disc, a 4403. I don't know all the flight numbers. Frankly, I'm a guy who likes flight numbers, but they're not like massively important for me when I'm reviewing discs. I typically like to take this out to see if they're comparable. Because if a disc flies similar to other discs, even if we throw different speeds, spins, nose angles, I find that a better way than just, hey, this is what this disc flies like without any reference. So I always try to say what I think or show what a disc flies like. That being said, this, in my opinion, was like a zone, but a little bit faster. Speed is a hard thing to quantify, but if I throw it, it feels like it just like got places quicker than my zone did, and it had as much, if not more, overstability. The Horizon drop that was in the mystery box video that I did with my buddy Lucas, that one looked awesome as well. But the Drop is one of my favorite overstable approach discs from the year. There is one that's higher up on this list, and these numbers could be arbitrary. It could just be how I felt in the moment today. But Drop, number 10, disc drop of the year. Number 9, Innova Racer. Some of you might be a little surprised that I have this on my list. It's a little bit of an interesting mold. It actually has a little nose bead, most people call it, on it right here, where instead of the underside and the top of the disc coming to a nice point, there's a little lip that you can kind of stick your finger into a little bit, your fingernail, and like, if I had more fingernails, hold it on it. This is a neutral flying 12-speed. 12.6, -2.2 are the numbers. Let's say it right on here. And I really actually like this for my forehand because it was very easy to throw, and my forehand does not go nearly as far as my backhand does right now. It's not nearly as consistent, but this disc was fast enough and reliable enough that I could throw consistent forehands with it, and I would still get some flip up, some ride, and it pushed farther than some other discs without really burning over on me too much. Helps that it's a little flatter. And the Racer I know is a disc that was very popular with a lot of people, kind of like the Innova Gorgon, which could get an honorable mention, but I really didn't like it that much when I reviewed it, which is another problem with just getting your opinion from one dude on the internet, so hopefully you like to watch other disc reviews as well. But the Racer I thought was a really impressive 12-speed. It didn't go quite as far as some of the other 12 speeds that I have, even though some people build it as one of the farthest flying 12 speeds. I just thought that it was very controllable and very consistent and gave you good push, like good glide, and I think a lot of people would really like this, so interesting thing. Innova is still finding ways to make discs a little more interesting, very consistent and good, so shout out to the Racer. Number 8, Trash Panda Extraterrestrial 2. This disc is pretty interesting because it is epicyclic, meaning that it is not perfectly square or circular around. There is a 7-speed rim and a 14-speed rim, I believe is what Jesse officially told me, but it kind of averages out to, I think I called it like a 9.5 speed, maybe a 10 speed. I think I do 9.5 speed, 4.5 glide, 1 turn, 3 fade. And it has a very interesting flight because depending on where you hold it, you can get slightly different spins on it. If you guys know about tech disc, it's a technology where there's a puck that's attached to the bottom of a disc, and it gives you readings like spin, speed, nose angle, wobble, and they actually put some tech discs on Trash Panda Extraterrestrial 2s. I got to see them when I was in Jesse's warehouse, since he's local to me and also a good friend. But that way you could have like a fairway and a driver all in one, depending on the grip that you wanted to use. I don't know exactly how it worked. It more seems like a cool thing to me. Maybe would work for training. If someone has one of those, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it's like. Trash Panda made this in collaboration with Gateway. It's actually a mold that Gateway had thought of before. And there actually was an extraterrestrial one as well. It released after the ET2. But this was a really unique and fun disc. I think it does definitely deserve a spot in my top 10 new disc releases of this year. I realized as I was making this that I had only really reviewed maybe 30 or 40 new drops this year. And this wasn't one that was in my head before I started making this top 10 and going through all the discs that I had reviewed, but I really did like it a lot when I reviewed it, and I shot a great round with it and had a nice, beautiful chain out that you maybe have seen on Instagram or on my YouTube shorts, but it is the ThoughtSpace Athletics Nuance Lucky Lorenzen Tour Series. Now, honestly, I'm personally a little surprised that I put this disc on here because I have talked a lot on this channel about these types of discs and who they're manufactured by, because this disc is made by MVP, who manufactures MVP, Axiom, Streamline, and they also do remix discs, which you can find on Amazon, and those are kind of their seconds molds, it kind of seems like, but it's kind of like a, hey, we're trying this mold out, and we didn't love the flight or the feel or something for our first team brands, which are those MVP, Axiom, Streamline, and so they sell them themselves as remix discs, but they also lease those molds out to companies like ThoughtSpace Athletics, Mint Discs, Jester Discs, Wild Discs for a while. I don't think they're around anymore. But this disc, the Nuance, it might be similar to a disc that Mint Discs has out there. I honestly haven't reviewed a lot of Mint Discs, and I've seen them come out with some interesting things, like the Lasso and the Salamander. So I'd like to maybe get my hands on some Mint Discs to review. So if someone from Mint is watching this, let's chat, and I'd love to give it a video idea together, and maybe you can just apply some discs. But these leased discs they seem to fit in an interesting category in my brain, that because they're not something that's like a unique mold, sometimes I'll like downgrade them even a little bit, but that shouldn't be the case. They're all just discs, and frankly, most discs are just branding over technology, because a lot of discs do the same things, even if it is manufactured by like a first-party company. But the ThoughtSpace Nuance, I just really enjoyed. It's very comfortable in my hand. It was a little more understable than I thought it'd be based on the feel of the disc. It feels very controllable because it's a little chunkier on the side. It doesn't feel like crazy fast. And sometimes when a disc is a little thinner, I just have a little bit more difficult time controlling it in the air because it maybe is a little too sharp and cuts through the air a little too well. This one doesn't seem to fall into that, but it still goes plenty far. And I just really enjoyed it as an understable 7-speed. I think I gave it the numbers, or it has the numbers 7.6 -2.1 or 7.5 -2.1, and it really lived up to that. So this was a top 10 disc for me of new releases for the year. Kind of surprised myself with that one. And at number 6 are two discs that I love that are in the 1-speed category. This was kind of the year of a little bit of 1-speeds. Not too many. I think the Glitch coming out last year, or maybe the year before, was really the year of the 1-speeds, and it spurred this whole explosion that we're seeing. But Infinite Discs, my main sponsor, and where you can also snag all these discs if you want. Infinite came out with a 1-speed, the Glyph, which I think is a Infinite in of a birdie, which is a pretty fun mold. I threw that early on in this year in the same video where I reviewed, or threw again, the Discmania Spore. And the other disc that I have at number 6, but I kind of don't because I don't even own one, but the Parachute, I never actually owned one, but it is Streamline's version of the Glitch. The Spore and the Parachute are some of my favorite 1-speeds, almost over the Glitch, because they have more overstability. So I can throw them on a touch of Anheuser really hard, actually, surprisingly, and they'll fly and they'll fight out. And so this Spore in particular, and every Parachute I've thrown I really liked, unlike the Glitch from MVP and the Pitch from Axiom, which is very similar but has slight differences. It's a little rounder all the way to the bottom instead of having, it just has a little smaller of a bead. But these have gyro technology, which means that there is more weight pushed to the outer rim, and so they have gyroscopic stability. I was watching like the Gyropalooza Q&A, and they were talking about how the Parachute, since it doesn't have gyro, it's a solo mold like all these discs that you're seeing right now, but because it's only a solo mold, it has to have aerodynamic stability, and so they made it more overstable, and it just turned out to be more overstable, so they're just a blast. What can you say? The range. This came out this year in the Space Race. They have not come out with other ranges yet. I think they'll be coming out with some more relatively soon. That should be really cool. But this is a slightly shallower, slightly less blocky Berg style disc. If you know the Berg from Castoplast, it kind of had a cult following for a while. Just because it's a 1-speed that is supposed to kind of fall out of the sky. So it gives you some touch if you have less touch, or it just helps like if you want to be able to throw something hard through a gap and let it sit down. Really good disc for that, and it's very torque resistant, so you can forehand and backhand it. The range came along and is definitely shallower and is also a little more comfortable in your hand. They call this anti-dome at MVP. This kind of depression in the flight plate is a little less pronounced in the range than on the Berg, and this actually makes this slightly more understable. When I did the space race, I initially thought I would just like throw it hard and flat and it would just go straight like the Berg does, maybe get a little fade since I'm up here in Colorado at elevation at 5,000 something feet. Oh, it's not overstable. Straighter than I anticipated it being. I think they might call this a 2-speed, but I call it a 1-speed because it seems like a Berg-esque. So this was a really cool release. I'm excited to see if MVP, who likes to kind of innovate and do sciencey things, has any more on the table in terms of anti-dome discs. I don't think I'd ever bag it, but Eagle, every time I play with him, he loves throwing this thing. In at number 4 is a disc that I have not thrown as much as I wanted to, because right after I put it in my bag, I switched to my Disc Life Crisis off-season bag, where I do have patches available, as well as Disc Dad hats. Those are on my website, my merch. Snag those if you want. But this is the Finish Line Discs Chicane. Drew Gibson's company, Finish Line Discs. Obviously, I'm a buddy of Drew. We chat a little bit. He's helped me with my form, and we just talk about content and disc golf a lot. And he manufactures his own discs, not from leasing them from like a company like MVP, but they have their own manufacturing facilities that they contract to make their discs. And this Chicane right here is another disc that honestly, to me, is very similar to the Drop, but a little slimmer profile and feel. And this is one of the only approach discs this year, besides the Zone, that I aced with. I was rocking up to a tags match or something, and I was throwing some practice shots, and then like threw a beautiful little forehand, a little touch of flex, and right into the chains. Unfortunately, that's not on video, so you're just gonna have to blame me. But this disc is probably my favorite approach disc that came out this year, and I cannot wait to get to throw it more. It'll probably be in the bag this year. But for me, if there's like a disc that supports one of my friends, of course I'm gonna be throwing that as well. Discmania, love ya, Nicolas Antela, great guy, but Drew owns this company, and this disc is similar to the Drop, similar to a Zone, fast, overstable approach disc. Super excited to put this one back in the bag, because this composite plastic feels so good. It's the first plastic I picked up from Finish Line, or honestly maybe like most smaller companies, that was like see-through, or maybe the first see-through plastic that I picked up, besides an old Jolly Launcher Innova Thunderbird that I had right when I started, that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to throw this. It just feels, it just feels like I need to throw it all the time. So before we get on to the top 3, let's do some honorable mentions. One honorable mention that just came into this stack like a week ago is the Meridian Discs Current. This is a disc that really surprised me for my Trash Panda mystery box video, where I almost shot a perfect 9 holes at Lou Miller Disc Golf Course. And it's a 7-speed that is very domey, and I didn't think I'd like that much, but for some reason the fit of like the rim against the plastic, and it looks kind of jawbreaker flecky. This kind of surprised me. So Current came out from Meridian Discs, and they actually sent me out a box. So those will be reviewed here pretty soon. I'm really excited to throw them all and see how the rest of their lineup flies, because if it's as good as this one, which I was very impressed with, I'll be very happy. Second, Swarm from Discraft came out. Very overstable 5-speed, Buzz OS. I think Anthony Barella now throws this in place of the Zone for the most part, especially on backhands. I don't know if he really backhanded Zones. So a little too overstable for my taste on at a 5-speed. DGA Surf, I just put this in here because I only got to throw this with Cole Redolin, but it was a disc that felt super good, and I think if I got more opportunities to throw it, I would really have liked it. It's a pretty fast 3-speed putter that's beadless that came out this year. Surf and Sonar came out at the same time. Slocky Bomb General, one of my favorite, actually probably my favorite overstable 12-speed that came out this year. A little more controllable, not quite as overstable as the numbers would suggest, 12.404. I think it's more like a 12.5, negative 0.53. Very comfortable disc, fits my hands very well, and throws very well. Of course, Silent Zop Pixel. Not a lot that you have to say about these, but these also came out this year. Weren't my favorite, but I could see myself putting with them. They're fine. Throwing is all right as well. They're just a little deep and a little high shouldery. They're a little shouldery, in my opinion, but really good. One stipulation of this was that they had to come out this year, and it wasn't like a new plastic. That being said, my first official like signature Tour Series disc. Maybe not a Tour Series because I'm not really on tour, but I'm on the tour team just because of you guys in this channel, because it's not like the tour level that they pay me. So I'm really grateful for that from you guys. But I had the Halo Sphinx this year as my signature disc, my Tour Series disc, and you guys love this as well. I loved it so much. They're actually almost sold out again, but really grateful for the support on these this year. Had to give it an honorable mention, and I cannot wait to see what we do this year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And then the last honorable mention is the Captain's Thrasher from Discraft. Really solid disc, but just didn't quite make the cut. I really like how the numbers are kind of more geared towards FPO, arm speeds. 12.502 are the numbers. It was definitely more of like a kind of pop-up, very similar to the Drive with a little more overstability, or like a Grace from Latitude 64, which are kind of more -1, 2 discs. And kind of a 0.212 speed is pretty unique, and I think a lot of people, this disc might still be a little slept on. It's really, really good and very comfortable in your hand, forehand and backhand. Forehand's a little less comfortable because it's a little high shoulder, but very comfortable disc. Definitely deserved an honorable mention. But moving into number 3 is actually one of, I think, my last 10 videos. And that is a disc that is not officially out, but had to count it because I counted the range, which only came out in the Space Race. This disc only came out in the Royal box, but it is the Royal Prototype Sweep. Now the Sweep is a straight 9-speed, very straight, very glidey, but still controllable. Like I could hit it on Anheuser and it would pan back to flat, going very far. This thing went very far. They wanted to make a more pro version of the Saint, excuse me, which is 9.7, -1.2, 7 glide. I mean, it's flight numbers, they're all made up, who cares? But I really, really like this disc. I would probably give it 9.5, -1.2. Reminds me of an S-Blend Dynasty, which is the old CD2 mold. Maybe not quite as comfortable as that, but this is a kind of a, keep your eyes out for this one in 2025 when it drops. I think people are really gonna like it. I think slower arm speeds, maybe up to about 55 miles an hour, are gonna really love it for like throwing it flat and letting it glide out, but still fade and finish without really turning too much. 65-ish mile an hour, 60 to 65, really gonna love it just for like popping up hyzers and pushing. And faster than that's gonna be like kind of hyzer flip, get a little bit of drift, kind of full flight 9-speed, which sometimes is really nice because when you can full flight a 9-speed instead of a 12 or 13 speed, the line, the left right movement is a little bit tighter. And so sometimes you wanna be able to throw that instead of a distance driver, even if you can throw them both the same distance. So really solid disc, excited for this drop. Number 2. You probably know it because I picked this up, changed my putter from the Marvel, which I actually had a signature one of as well. But I put these in my hand when I played with my buddy up at a course in the last couple months, and I really like how they putt. Kind of changed my thought process on what I could putt with, and this is the Gannon-Buhr P2X. I'm not sure what I'm going to be putting with for this season as I kind of start transitioning my off-season bag to be my real regular tournament bag and putting some of the discs that I've thrown before back into it and maybe keeping some that are in there, or just my mindset's changed a little bit on a lot of things, which is what the purpose of that bag was for, which I'm really grateful for. But I think going with... Oh! Well, I guess I know whose putter I'm putting with now.
That was
Why'd you put all your spit outs into this disc right here?
Hey, I mean...
But I think going with exactly what Gannon told me in this P2X video. Every time I talk to you, you say you need to putt with a beaded putter.
I have been, and he finally, hopefully, will listen.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes me like 15 times to listen to somebody else.
For my opinion, I'm putting. I think beaded, pretty medium depth, and slightly overstable is going to be your best bet. I think it's best to eliminate factors as wind and stability. When you know your disc is going to always have a little bit of a hook at the end, it's going to be more consistent, just like any other overstable disc. You know, there are some spin putters out there, but I still think these are good for spin putting. You can putt them real hard at the right side and know they're going to dump in. And I think that's definitely something that to be said, is being able to be confident putting hard or doing anything, you know, at that kind of 85% force level in sports. It's a very comfortable, you know, power range where you can kind of
like that commitment level.
You can fully commit to the putt, like a 3-pointer, or obviously a free throw, no jump. So it's just yeah, real consistent, and that's why I like them.
Really love how this flies, and it's helped me to commit to my putts better. And I don't know if I'll be putting with this for the season, but something like it more likely than not. And the number 1 disc, it's not really need a lot of introduction. It is the MVP Trail. This, I think, is the best driver that MVP has come out with, maybe ever. It's the best disc that I've ever thrown from them. It's got dome baked into the mold rather than kind of heating and cooling to get the dome. Very comfortable. It almost borders on being a little too thick, like the time-lapse stubs, because of the shoulder getting raised up, but the shoulder's not too high. It's very true. 10.5, -1.1. Goes very, very far. I threw this over 500 feet in the video that I shot with it with my buddy Caleb. And just a very point and shoot, dead straight. Very glidey. I may give it maybe a 6, maybe 6.5 glide rather than the 5 that it has. For that reason, I probably wouldn't bag it. It's very fun, but I think I have other discs that fill the slots that this would occupy for me. But it could, like, I if I wasn't on VP, I'd definitely be bagging this disc. So this, I think, was the #1 release of the year, in my complete opinion. Also helps probably that this video is like my second highest viewed video of the videos that I posted this year. But I think that's for good reason, because a lot of people love this and it's a really good disc. So those are my top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed watching my channel this year, however much or little you did. I just appreciate that you did it at all. And hopefully you'll be back for a pretty exciting 2025. I really appreciate you, and I'm grateful that you make it a reality that I get to do this for a living and to support my family, which has now grown, and we've had a baby. So thank you so much for that, and I'll see you guys next year.